Hello, hello, hello. I think I'm streaming now. I hope so. I think I should be out there on the internets. I'm going to go check some places to double check that it's all working. But I'm trying some new things. We'll see if it's all working. Should be on my Facebook. Doesn't look like it. Do I have to do some extra settings? Okay, I see that in there. Yeah, Pixel, I hear you. Recommended 2. Pixel, no. Get out. All right, change the keyframe interval. Okay, so how do I go? It's not on YouTube, is it? Oh, there is. Is that working? Yeah, it looks like I'm on YouTube. That's cool. Let's go to Twitchy Boy. Am I on Twitchy? This is the first time I've ever done this. Should be like streaming to 2 places at once right now, called using Restream. There's probably watermarks everywhere for it. Am I doing it now? Oh, maybe I am streaming, right? Change the keyframe interval. Is that working? Oh, look, I am streaming on Twitch also. This is cool. All right, well then shit. I think I'm ready. Let me double check. Is that going? Oh, play on the. Can I watch myself live? Is that gonna happen? Okay, yeah, I can do that. Cool. Now I just need to figure out how to get chats in here. That would be very nice. Let's see, like that. Nope. Let's see, is actually, can I go to this? Want to see the stream? Yeah, go to the stream. Can my chats work? Let's see. Hey, in the YouTube chat. YouTube. Did that work? Oh, it's unable to connect. So pop out, copy. Now I should. YouTube pops in, maybe. Nope. Nope, that's not. Okay, pop out chat. Copy that URL. Paste it in there. Okay. God, who's texting me right now? Oh my god. Okay, can't do that. Is that going through? Yeah, I can't figure out how to do the chatsy things. It should be just this. let's look at my Twitch chat. Can I do it from there? I don't know how to. I would not know how to do it from here either. Pop out chat, maybe same way. We'll copy that. Make a new browser source, and then we'll do what? Twitch chat. I muted myself. Sorry about that, guys. So yeah, I think we're all set up now, so that's great. We're gonna get on with the gaming. Today we have Making of KARATEKA Part 2. So, yeah, I mean, we played about an hour, maybe an hour and a half yesterday. So, today, keep going to see how long ago. You know, it's 12 midnight right now. We played about an hour, maybe an hour and a half yesterday. So, today, keep going to see how long ago. You know, it's 12. So yeah, let's get some stuff going and then. Let me try one more time for this YouTube chat, just in case I have something pop up. It should be working if I pop it there. Just move it down some for why not. Paste that in there. Hit go. Nothing. Okay, that's cool. All right. But yes, Twitch is working. That's good. That's fine. That's all I need. Twitch is probably where all the fans are going to come from anyway. All right, Making of KARATEKA. I'll try to get a better mic situation. I know I have better mics here, but I just got to get the setup better. Alrighty, we're going to go back to Chapter 3 where we started. There's only 5 chapters. Okay, so we're about halfway through. We got a little kitty over here, sorry. Should put a kitten cam on. Fact. I can do better than that. In fact, let's see if I can zoom in a little bit for you. This one, this one. There's a little kitty cam. Hope that goes for you. So. And maybe he doesn't move. He's kind of hard to see down there. Shine a little light on him. All right, life on the screen. Now an adventure game. KARATEKA would use clever animation techniques and simple influences to create a game that looks like nothing but before it. But Jordan didn't do it alone. KARATEKA, Apple, 1984. The original version of KARATEKA is designed and programmed by Jordan Mechner. Its cinematic camera, storylines and sequences, and smooth rotoscoped animation make KARATEKA like no other computer game at the time. Although the Apple II high-resolution graphics could only display 6 colors, Jordan was still able to use a limited palette to get to great effect. So, did we really? Let me go back. Oh, no, I didn't. Okay, I was like, I didn't make it that far, so 67%. Where did I get? How did I felt like I got this far, yeah. Maybe I need to explore more? But yeah, I definitely did that. Okay, that's where I left off. Francis Mechner, Jordan's father, Mechner, is a renowned research psychologist, concert pianist, and chess master. Jeez. It was Francis who suggested using the animation technique known as rotoscoping. Dad suggested filming somebody and counting the frames. Mom suggested Dennis, the karate instructor. Remember, the film editing machine he had. Did I finish this? I did go through all that, yes. And then the next play is Drawing from Life. Okay. Fleischer rotoscope. Shown here in 1917 patent, engineering Max Fleischer, rotoscoping involving 2 frames of live actor, then tracing individual frames to create animated drawings. Jordan pioneered use of rotoscoping and video tracing. Yeah. Apple II, the most creative lifelike animations ever seen. See how it's done a little bit.
Working with Jordan was fascinating because he brought in the cinematic side. He obviously was really into movies. He's actually gone off and worked for a bit in the film industry. And the aesthetic and the motion of KARATEKA, which he continued in Prince of Persia and later in The Last Express, was really unusual for the time, this idea of rotoscoping.
I decided to try a trick early Disney animators had used called rotoscoping. Rotoscoping is basically filming live actors doing the moves that you want to animate and then literally tracing each frame to get a frame of animation. At first I started to try to do the animation the usual way by drawing characters on graph paper. And then, because it was pixel by pixel at that time that we had to do the animations. But when I tried it, it just looked stiff. And I think you were the one who had the idea of filming the movements and then counting the number of frames.
I suggested...
Well, hello to people watching. I think one of those might be me, but hi the other person.
I suggested that we just make a video.
Well, in that video, this was 1982.
A Super 8, a Super 8 of somebody actually making those movements. I thought, I didn't remember that, Like you're right.
And you were actually a model at one point, because I started by filming our karate teacher, Dennis, doing the punches and the kicks, advancing and retreating, but then later on I realized that the character would need to run, like that it was too slow to move in that karate stance throughout the entire palace, so I needed someone running, and so you put on a karate outfit, and we went out into the woods in front of the house in Chappaqua, and I filmed you running in Super 8. And also the climbing up onto the cliff at the beginning of the game, that was you, climbing up onto the hood of the car.
That's fun. His dad.
In the carport.
I'd forgotten that.
We're wearing, I guess, I don't know if it was my karate suit or...
Mom's probably.
Yeah, you were probably wearing Mom's gi.
Yeah.
And you had never taken karate lessons, but you did the running. Yeah, so what I did was I put that Super 8 roll of film on the Moviola, which was it was a screen with a rear projection, and you could turn the crank and stop on a particular frame, and then I would put a piece of tracing paper, I would scotch tape it to the screen and trace the outline of the character with a pencil, and then wind it a couple of frames ahead, and then do the same thing. So I ended up with all these little sheets of tracing paper with outlines.
That was a breakthrough, actually, in video game technology, because nobody had done that before you.
I mean, it really goes all the way back to silent film. I mean, I found out later that the early animators had done this. In Snow White, Disney's animators had actually, not for the dwarfs and the animals, but for Snow White and the prince, the more human characters.
It's kind of an obvious idea, because everybody knows that real live movements are totally different from what a cartoonist would draw. I mean, there are very subtle rhythms and speed changes that define a human movement, a movement of a live organism as opposed to the movement of an imagined organism.
Well, and also there's so many complexities, like there's things that you wouldn't imagine, like the way that you kind of throw an arm awkwardly over one shoulder to compensate for the change in balance.
Correct.
It's like when you see it, it looks natural, but if you're just trying to reconstruct in your head what someone does, for example, when they turn around while running, you wouldn't think of that.
And also we make adjustments.
Kitty, why you tapping me?
The angle at which we hold the body, depending on the speed with which we're moving, so that we don't tilt over.
Yeah.
And those adjustments are very critical to the realism of the movement.
Yeah, in karateka it's very subtle, but there's a low kick, a middle kick, and a high kick.
I know.
And I remember the frame of the high kick, the fighter leans back, and also the arm goes back, and that's something, it's... I remember that because I had to, draw that frame and use it so many times. For 2 years I was staring at that frame, but in the beginning when I tried to do a frame of a high kick, it was more like idealized.
Yeah.
You didn't realize that the body would have to lean quite that far back.
That's fascinating.
This took a very long time. It was an incredibly laborious process. It took me months to go through all these steps just to get to the point of doing the first animation test. But I can still remember the thrill that I felt on seeing that little figure moving across the screen. It was the illusion of life. It was everything I'd hoped for.
All right, all right. Rotoscoping, drawing from life. When Jordan began, that was the one we just saw. Tracing paper session 1, March 15th, 1983. Filmed his mother's karate teacher, performing various attacks and stances. He was able to display a single frame on the Super 8 footage of the wall in his dorm room to trace it. That's good. The sensei, Dennis Holliday, and of the Triangle Way Sankukudu Karate Dojo in Yorktown Heights, New York. Here's all the traces. Oh, that's good, man. All right. A little bow. Yeah. Step down. Fall down. That's cool. Getting ready to fight. Yeah. Block pose. Oh no, turn. Jabs. Up. Yeah. Kicks. Punch. What else? A run. Oh, that's not a run. That was a walk. Stand. Yeah, just stand and idle. Step. Oh, ooh, I love the back. The step. That's good. Turn around. Yeah. Let's go see that step again. That's a good little cross right there. Unpunch. I don't know where an unpunch is. And a walk. There's the walk. Jordan's process in these panels from Replay, an upcoming autobiographical memoir for second books of 2024. Jordan illustrates the process. So he had a little computer here, or a little screen here from like the Super 8, and he would just put a piece of film over there, kind of trace it, and just have that. Man, what a nerd. I love it. Finally, we made some sprites. Jordan bought a device called a VersaWriter, which was a tablet with an electronic arm that would read the movements of stylus to translate them into computer graphics. This was way ahead of its time. And this way, he was able to turn art on the tracing paper into crude sprites he could clean up using Drax, whatever that is. Drawing program. He wrote, oh my god, turn these into sequences. Yeah, there's all the sprites. Look at that sprite sheet. Days before scanners and digital cameras, a device called the VersaWriter lets computers digitize their artwork. After placing a sketch on the book, they trace the lines with a stylus, which was attached to an articulated arm. Ken and Roberta Williams used a VersaWriter for the first graphics adventure game Mystery House, and Jordan using the KARATEKA games. That's so cool. Jordan's VersaWriter. In this panel from the upcoming graphic memoir, Jordan recreates. In this panel from the upcoming graphic, got some sound going on. Boom, turn that off. There we go. Jordan recreates the process of using a VersaWriter to digitize his arms. So yeah, it was just a little arm that would just figure out where he's going. That's wild tech, man. For the mid '80s. This journal. I was afraid that tinkering with the trace outlines would distort the animation, make it look all wrong again. That this whole technology might be fatally flawed, but it worked beautifully. Editing the images, Drax not only did it ruin the lifelike of it, but it made it better. The little guy now looks like even more little guy, even though he did with the VersaWriter. Sweet. Storyboard. Nice. From around the time period, it shows the planned scope of the game. One level, finishing with a confrontation with the villain. The game over screen would show the villains raising his arms in victory. Can't really scribbles, but yeah, there's a little victory pose there. Victory pose for the bad guy, I guess. Dojo mode. For much of KARATEKA development, Jordan wanted to implement a dojo mode where the players could train by hitting a punch bag in the hero's dojo, home dojo, away from enemies. He got as far as creating this scene in Drax. The game's controls got much simpler as development progressed, which probably lessened the need for a practice mode. Okay. Yeah, you start with big ideas and you're like, oh, this isn't, let's pare this down some. Read an article in the Times about Dragon's Lair, very good. The new video disc arcade game with an animation by Don Bluth. Got to see it. In a way, it was kind of a depressing to read, but it's like my dream is to come true. It's coming true, and I'm missing it. By the time I get there, it'll all be over. Nope, man, you were just with 83. Come on, boy. Games were just about to explode. Actually, just about to crash and then come back. But yeah, kitty. Jordan's Karateka schedule. In addition to keeping a journal of daily activities, Jordan kept a chart showing the number of hours each day he worked on Karateka. Third column, certain pages cuts show the Yale classes that he skipped that would or days to work on the game. He often cut SP as social psychology, but I rarely missed literature. Films. Is he like tracking how many hours he's worked on it? Or wants to work on it? A little chart down here. Karateka hours, yeah, it's like he's showing how much time he's worked on it. Jeez, man, this guy this is what we would do if we didn't have like TikTok and our phones to, you know, keep us entertained. We would make this kind of stuff cumulative. Falling off a cliff. The first guard punches the player got back too far, or if the player simply pushes left or right into the game when the game begins. We go tumbling off the cliff and an instant game over. A surprising moment that adds another layer of realism in Karateka. The design documents references the names of tracing paper frames. Walks. Step 1, 3, 4, 5. Falls. What is this? Oops. Oh no. What did I do? Let's get back there. Whoa. These are not screenshots of a prototype, but the scenes that Jordan drew in Drax as part of the process of working at the game design. Take note of the various features that didn't make the cut, such as a mission rescue princess, text, the timer, and the map on top of the screen showing the progress and location of the next guard. These are colorful screens. Oh, the time thing's up there, yeah. It's a weird progress bar at the top, but... that's all the font he's trying there. Karateka. Mission Rescue Princess. On January 2nd, 1984, Jordan and his father came up with the game's final major mechanic, the villain attack bird. This solved a design problem. The player didn't need to be particularly cautious as they made their way from guard to guard. The possibility of a random bird attack meant the player had to be more vigilant. Or just like a random bird that showed up, I guess maybe mid-game it looked like. Cool design, little nice bird drawings there. Even, oh, that's a good eagle. Look at that eagle. Is that a headless bird? What the heck is that? Oh, it must be it's like a spider riding his neck. What is that? Vulture now. What is going on? Yes, well, the journal. Dad and I realized the game lacks two important elements: conflict of interest and vigilance. We came up with a solution: the villain's pet vulture, which attacks you every now and then. Then when you're between guards, you need to fight and be in a fighting stance when it comes on screen, or punch and kick to the correct height to repel its attacks. If you're running in stance, you'll get clobbered and lose those hit points. Rotoscope Session 2 on January 7th, 1984. Jordan and his family filmed the second and final rotoscoping session for Karateka. Every step in this process has been preserved. We can see the entire journey. Fuck yes, let's see that shit. Well, that looks really fast just running, but... Okay. Okay, so check it. All right, when is this? How long is this video? Can I fast forward? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, little cat. Did you see that cat flash? The run. See, it would have been better if you could, like, I don't know, plain black or plain screen in the background, like a, you know, a green screen, obviously, but I guess that, I mean, they had the idea of blue screen back then, but, you know, limited budget and also a full run would take a big one, you know, but it would have helped tracing it and stuff. Tracing the paper run. I mean, that's not bad, though. And he put the trees in there to kind of show distance, I think. Very cool. Climbing on the car. Capture flames of the hero over the top of the hill or the cliff at the beginning of the game. Francis Mechner donned his wife's karate gi and climbed on top of the family car. Tracing it. That's good, man. That guy's good at tracing for sure. Okay, we can. Ooh. Oh, I can see the sketch layer on top. Oh, this is good. Oh, I love this. Yeah, dude, look at that sketch. Perfectly lined up. He put the trees in there for frames and references. This is good. All the way to the moving, you know, sketches. And we can just slowly see. Good stuff. And then some digitized sprites after that. And a rough animation. Oh. Comparing the tracing paper onto the VersaWriter output using this interactive rotoscope viewer. There's the sprite layer. Let's see the sprite layer over the sketch layer. Okay. It's a little clunky. It's outside of it every now and then. Let's see it over the human layer. Like it. And cleaned up runner. The digitized climber. Yep, climbing up on the car. And the cliff sequence. Going back up a little bit more. Rotoscope view. Okay. The final sprite layer there. Let's see it over the sketch. That's good. That's good. Feet looks a little weird in some like frames, like the final sprite. It's like just 3 like staircases or something, but I mean honestly, like, go through this. See the guy running next to it or in it. Looks so good. More sprite sheets. There's the bird attack. Some explosions. More explosions, I guess. Oh, a fall. There's the fall. Cross-cutting. In addition to rotoscope animation, another cinematic technique introduced Karateka was cross-cutting, swap the camera back and forth between the player and the approaching enemy. This gave the game a heightened sense of film-like action. In a brainstorming session with my dad, I got many good ideas. The most important is to 1, add footstep sounds for you and the guards. Yes, that makes sense. Keep cross-cutting between the two of you. If you stop running, it cuts back to the guard running toward you. Tension. And the villain, originally named Kratong and renamed to Brunderbund to a Kuma, or demon, the main villain needed to be an imposing presence. While he had the same height as a hero, his puffy sleeves and oversized robe loomed larger than life. Brainstorming for Kratong. Jordan the villain, so he played the villain part 2. And the villain sprites. Ooh, falling down dead. I like the big leg. Yeah, the big leg skirt thing is good. Scenario dealing with the princess. After a hard-fought game of karateka, simply reaching the princess, originally Tiger Lily named later Mariko, is no guarantee of success. In Jordan's original design, which you can play in his original prototype, the player had to bow to the princess before she would extend her arms to embrace him. Otherwise, she'd kill him. Damn. So you don't bow, you dead. Some princess sprites. Oh. I like the white hair. In the final game, if you approach the princess while in your fighting stance, she will take this as a threat and attack and kill you with a single blow. If you have to approach in your non-violent walking stance to complete the story. Very good to know. The Drax scenes. More early scenes that Jordan created in Drax as they put the game together. Note that these use the solid life bars, not the arrows, which were added later after Jordan signed with Broderburn. These are just like basically concepts for the game, like real life concepts, like as good as it could do back then before really making it. I love this shadow like that he has in the light, like it's so simple but effective. What are those green eyes back there? Some music.
Well, this is the apartment where we made the music 35 years ago, right?
Right. And I sat right here.
Right. It was.
You sat. Where did you sit? There or here?
Well, I don't remember. It's been 35
but
years.
But you had your laptop.
It wasn't a
It
laptop.
wasn't a laptop.
Yeah.
It was a computer. What was it? An
It
Apple.
was an Apple II computer.
The music that was there just on the Apple II was fantastic, and it just sort of like gave you a sense of, you know, like sort of a score, you know, happening during your game, and it was one of the most impactful as far as just remembering it as a total experience of a game that I've had in a long time.
I remember with Karateka the music, and there wasn't a whole lot of it in the game, but there were a few, you know, tunes that played at key moments, and I remember the opening music had a big impact, and it was interesting with the Apple IIc because it was a single unit, and there was a speaker built into it, and so when you put your hands on the keyboard, if you had the volume really loud, you can feel the vibration of the music being played through the speaker. And Karateka, for some reason, I remember that opening tune. I haven't heard it in I don't know how long, but I'm sure if I heard it, I would recognize it immediately. But I just remember the music having a big deal.
I knew from early Disney animation and silent movies how important music was to tell a story and make it emotional. But I wasn't a musician. So I turned to my dad. He was a businessman, not a professional musician, but he was a really good classical pianist. Yeah, that's what I grew up hearing. So Karateka was your first composing job.
That one song over and over?
Not all games had music at that time. You know, it was, I mean, technically it was difficult to get music into the game because the Apple II processor could only do one thing at a time.
Yeah.
So anytime we played music, the action on the screen had to freeze. For example, we couldn't play the music while the princess was walking.
Right.
So we had to design it in such a way that like the characters would pause, then we would play a little bit of music, then we could animate. But it was worth it because the music added drama.
Even the idea of using music in a video game was novel at that time. I even observed to you that none of these games use music. They have clicks, and they have loud clicks and soft clicks, and sometimes they had beeps, but they never had music.
Yeah, that's right. On the Apple, it had a speaker that could only do beeps.
We had that conversation. Can these beeps be turned into music? And then you explained to me that every beep had a range of frequencies and could be tuned to any particular frequency. So I said, well, why not have a series of beeps that are tuned to notes?
Yeah.
And then you have music.
Of course, when he agreed to compose the music for Karateka, I'm not sure he really understood just how severe the technical limitations of the Apple II were. This was before sound cards.
There is one memory location that if you accessed it, it would go. And that's what you had to make sound with. That's how you made sound effects, that's how you made music. You just did that faster or slower.
He'd write out the themes for Mariko and the Hero and Akuma on sheet music, and I'd calculate the hexadecimal note values and type them into the computer. I remember playing the music back for him, and he'd say, well, this note here it's a little bit sharp, and I'd bring it down one, and he'd say, well, now it's a half tone too flat, and so I'd bring it up one, and then he'd say, well, now it's a quarter tone sharp, and I'd say, Dad, this is a computer. It's a number from 0 to 255. There's nothing in between. I was trying to remember, how did we talk about what kind of music to write? Were there any?
Oh, I immediately said that you need the leitmotif, of course. That was a no-brainer. I mean, that was clear right away.
He suggested using Wagner's leitmotif approach, also used in movies like Star Wars, in which each character is represented by a musical theme. Yeah.
So I thought, I was thinking of the Siegfried motif in Wagner's Götterdämmerung series. The Siegfried opera has a leitmotif for Siegfried, who is a hero, sort of an admirable figure. And I wanted that for your hero in Karateka. So I was thinking that the Siegfried motif goes something like this. It goes. And then continue. Like that.
Happy there?
So it was too long. It had to be short for Karateka. So I tried to abbreviate it for Karateka. So I tried to abbreviate it. Like that.
Yeah, except that I couldn't play notes simultaneously.
Yeah, but okay, but. Like that. So that's sort of a takeoff on the Siegfried theme.
It always sounded great when you played it on the piano, but then when I translated it to the Apple II,
Well,
it was...
it sounded pretty good, actually. And then we did the Akuma theme. It has to be sort of a menacing.
Yeah, making you play this for the first time in 35 years.
And then the danger theme, which is sort of related to Akuma. So we used this.
I mean, that sounds like Wagner to me too. Was that inspired by Hunding's theme? And,
Yeah, exactly. The Hunding theme, right. I forgot that. And then the princess is.
I like the old guy's voice. The princess, like a little lisp and stuff. It's cute. Oh. Just making a.
I thought the music was played at the right moments. Like it was all set up very dramatically, to play on the story that I think was being implied. And, to me, it sort of was a precursor to all the stuff that came later.
for Karateka we had the hero's theme, and then the villain Akuma's theme, and then the princess's theme.
Right.
Just very strong flavors.
Yeah, but you know, what you're reminding me of is how new that idea was at that time. You know, the very idea, the very possibility of having music in a video game, where there are no notes available, where you can only have one beep at a time. It's not obvious that can be turned into music, you know.
And it was important for creating the mood. When you have characters who are 40 pixels high, you don't have camera angles, you don't have lighting, but you want to show that this one is the villain, and you know, this one is the princess in distress. You know, the music, just like, even if it's just a few notes and you don't really have orchestration,
Right.
it tells you right away who's who.
So it's amazing what we accomplished with that, you know, really.
Really. Oh, that's. Let's see what this chat CSS looks like. I'm trying to play with some chat CSS. Sorry, guys. I like that better. It's easier to read at the very least. Oh. There's my YouTube chat also. Cool. Put that guy up there. Oops. Sure, go with those two. Alright, I think I'm done playing with this. Alright. Francis explains Karateka's music in the exhaustive 7-page document intended to be referenced by the designers who are porting Karateka to other platforms. Francis himself gives them an in-depth explanation of the craft and the meaning behind music scores. That's really cool. There's the notes and like maybe themes of like why and what you should be feeling. Wow, it's just a couple of notes. listen to some.
Hello, noble warriors. Kirk Hamilton here. I host a music podcast called Strong Songs, and I'm here today to break down the music, the very strong music, for a very important video
Listen
game.
to this whole thing.
This music, composed by the great Francis Mechner, wound up setting the template for a lot of video game music that would come in the decades after it. But this game was one of the first. Of course, the music I'm talking about is the music for the game that you are all now playing, Jordan Mechner's 1984 martial arts adventure, Karateka. Karateka may seem like a simple game when you look at it and compare it to most modern video games it is, but it was actually at the vanguard of a lot of pretty cool things, particularly with regard to narrative. You play as a lone hero trying to rescue the Princess Mariko from the evil Akuma, and as you make your way toward her and toward your final showdown with Akuma, he dispatches different enemies toward you. Sometimes his hawk comes and attacks you. And there's kind of this sense of narrative unfolding over the course of the game. That narrative is greatly enhanced by Francis Mechner's music, which uses a technique called leitmotif to establish different motifs or themes for characters and events to give you a sense of a narrative unfolding musically in addition to the narrative that's unfolding in front of you on the screen. Leitmotif is most commonly associated with the mid-19th century operas of Richard Wagner. That's why you will sometimes hear it referred to as Wagnerian leitmotif, though for our intents and purposes I'm mostly just going to call them motifs. So we're going to get into those motifs here, and I'm going to hopefully help explain how they're working musically, which will then explain how they're working in terms of the game's narrative and the sort of overall flow of Karateka, helping tell that story and build that narrative. My goal is that when you play the game after having listened to this, you'll have a kind of clearer sense of those motifs and how they're working in the service of the narrative, and that more broadly you'll have a better sense of leitmotif in general, because it's not just in this game, it turns up all over the place. It's a really cool concept, and it lets you kind of unlock the musical storytelling that's going on in a lot of different art across the artistic spectrum. The music for Karateka was composed by Francis Mechner, Jordan Mechner's father, and if you're looking at the notes that are in this museum, you can see that Francis was actually really involved in a lot of the development of the game, and the music is really an important part of the game, but he also just had a lot of input into the overall game, which is really cool because he just seems like a really cool guy. He was one of those true Renaissance men. He was a scientist, and that was kind of what he did professionally, but he worked with the Children's Television Workshop on Sesame Street. He was a painter, and he was also a musician. He was a pianist, and a very good one. Not only was he one of the very first video game composers, he was also just a great concert pianist. What you're hearing right now is actually his performance of Chopin's Fantasy Impromptu, which is no joke on piano. I mean, I certainly can't play it, let alone this well. Mechner was coming from the world of classical music when he wrote the motifs for Karateka, and you can hear that in the music. It is unusual. You don't hear these kinds of harmonies in most video games, and that makes the Karateka soundtrack stand out even all these years later. So let's go through all these motifs. First of all, a note up front, I am using the Commodore 64 version of the soundtrack because that is richer, because the Commodore 64 was capable of more simultaneous pitches than the Apple II. And there is an interesting difference there, but I kind of want to stick with the one that has all of the notes instead of the one that only has a few, even though the Apple version sounds kind of cool. Of course, you can play either the Apple or the Commodore version in this collected version of the game. Just to give you a sense up front though, so you can hear what they both sound like right here, this is the Apple version of the main Karateka theme.
Harsh saw sound.
And this is the Commodore 64 version, which has way more notes, as you'll hear. It's a dramatic difference, and it really shows how far the technology came in just a few years. The Apple II came out in 1977, the Commodore 64 came out in 1982, and I mean, the Apple II is just repurposing its speaker to make single tones to sort of generate something approximating music.
Approximating music, I like that.
While the Commodore 64 had an onboard multi-timbral synthesizer, which means it could make multiple voices at once, it was designed to make music, and it gives a game composer so much more flexibility. Here's that same music on the Commodore. You hear how the note fades out, how these multiple pitches work with one another. It's a night and day difference between that and this. Now, I don't know if you noticed this, but the Commodore version is actually a little bit flat compared to the Apple version. That means the notes are a little bit lower. The Apple version is tuned to the A440 standard, which is the standard tuning for most instruments these days. The Commodore 64 version is a little bit flat. It's like, I don't know, 7 cents flat or something. So I have retuned my sampled piano so that I can play along with the Commodore version, and everything you're going to be hearing is a little bit under A440. So to those of you with perfect pitch listening to this, sorry. That main triumphant but minor keyed theme from Karateka is probably the most important single motif in this soundtrack. Just to run down the other ones, there is Akuma's theme.
Ooh, yeah.
There's Mariko's theme, the captive princess theme. And there's one more motif that isn't really attached to a character. It's more just the danger theme, and it plays whenever something threatening or dangerous happens. There's also a softer version that hints at the danger without being explicit. It's something that Jordan Mechner was clever about when he was implementing Francis's music. He used different waveforms for his synthesizers to get softer or harsher tones, which sometimes can be kind of jarring because he didn't have that much to work with. Like, even the Commodore's hardware wasn't that sophisticated, but it let him get very different textures out of a fairly limited overall sound palette. Like, compare the very soft triangle or sine waves of the Princess theme with the much harsher kind of saw waves of that main Karateka theme. That kind of creative synthesizer orchestration turns up a lot in video games from this era, from the 1980s. I think it's really interesting because, you know, these composers and game developers weren't working with all that much. They couldn't have a whole orchestra, but they could manipulate the synthesizers to get these different tones, which gives you a sense that each piece is being played by a different instrument, even though, of course, they're all being played by the same instrument. The Commodore version of Karateka gets to experiment with that kind of orchestration right off the bat. During the opening text crawl on this version of the game, there's music behind it that actually opens with the sound of the wind, which is very dramatic. And then the music comes in, weaving together all of the motifs that you're about to hear in the game that you're about to play. It's very much in the mode of an opera's overture, which takes the same approach.
Do-do-do-do.
So even just in this short amount of time, you've actually heard all of the main motifs from the game mixed together to tell this condensed version of the game's story. For starters, there is that Karateka theme. This is also what you hear at the very beginning of the game when you first take control. This is the theme that you hear. So we're in the key of A minor, and what I think is interesting about this motif is that it's actually very unresolved. It's kind of jangly and vertical and intense, and it ends in a very unresolved place, which is kind of unusual. I think this game begins with a lot of tension, and even the main motif is very tense. We're in the key of A minor. That first chord is an A minor. I'd call the second chord a B half diminished over F, and the final chord is an E dominant seventh chord, which is very tense, and it wants to resolve back to the A minor, but it doesn't get to resolve. This motif actually ends on an unresolved 5 chord, which is a good way to make it just sound like it's going somewhere. It's a great way to begin an adventure because you don't begin on a resolution. You begin on some tension, which of course Karateka begins narratively in a very tense place. The melody that plays over those chords is also pretty intense. It's fairly strident, just these ascending arpeggios going through those 3 chords, and I really like that middle part of the melody in particular. Those last 2 notes are a B and an F, also known as a tritone. It's a very dissonant interval and just nice and crunchy, really creates that sort of dissonance and intensity right here at the very beginning. Throughout the game, those strident ascending arpeggios are associated with our hero most clearly every time you win a fight. The victory music is a quick major key rendition of the same theme. So that's our hero, but what of our villain? The first cutscene of the game actually shows Akuma and the Princess Mariko and plays both of their motifs, so let's look at those two. First of all, we've got Akuma's motif.
Sounds
I
metal
love
as
this as a
fuck.
villain motif because it's so gnarly. Just the synth sounds so gnarly. It kind of rips in almost like this like robot mulcher or something. We're still in A minor, and that motif just kind of goes really quickly up this chromatic thing, going from A to C and then just up. It almost sounds a little bit bluesy. If you slowed it down, maybe added a little swing to it, you get something a little like this. I don't think that that's what Francis Mechner was going for, but I'll always hear it that way. Immediately after Akuma's theme in the opening cutscene, we hear the princess's theme because he is there with her, putting her in her prison cell. We are, of course, still in A minor. This whole game is in A minor, which lets them switch seamlessly between motifs without having to change keys. This motif actually has two voices. It's the only motif that has two lead voices that are in harmony with one another. The top voice plays these notes, and the second voice plays these notes. So when you put them together, you get this. And as the door to her prison cell slams shut, we hear Karateka's final motif, the danger motif. The most straightforward motif in the whole game, this one plays whenever Akuma dispatches a new henchman to try to stop the hero. This is just a simple 4-note motif starting on E flat and ending on E. It's a chromatic line, which means that it's moving by half steps, which is the shortest distance between notes on the piano according to the Western chromatic scale, and it's the tightest interval you can have, which just gives it that kind of close, uncomfortable feeling. Playing two notes a half step apart right next to each other is a very dissonant sound, and half steps are commonly used in film scores and in opera to denote evil and danger. One of the most famous danger motifs of all time, after all, is
Jaws.
just a simple half step.
Yeah, baby.
Okay, you get it. With those motifs established, Karateka basically just follows that formula throughout the entire run of the game. There's no background music, it's just motifs, and you can follow the story very clearly along with the motifs. Whenever we see Akuma, we hear some version of Akuma's motif. Whenever we see the princess, we hear some version of the princess's motif. Whenever Akuma dispatches an enemy, we hear the danger motif. Whenever we see the hero, we hear the heroic motif. With all of those motifs in your ear, you can go back to the intro music that plays during the text crawl in the Commodore 64 version, and you can hear how Francis Mechner wove all of the different motifs together very clearly. We start with the danger theme. Then Akuma's theme and the hero's theme play at the same time, with the princess's theme after. Something similar happens toward the end of the game. When the hero finally breaches Akuma's fortress, you hear a combined version of their two themes.
That's kind of fun.
When he reaches the princess's cell and faces off against Akuma, you hear something very similar. Musically, the two motifs are at battle with one another, just like the two characters are at battle on the screen. The princess is also there in the background, and her motif takes a similar place in the musical arrangement. And if the hero can defeat Akuma and rescue the princess, when the two of them embrace, you hear a version of the princess's motif that is moved into A major, a much brighter and happier sound that turns those mournful, soft, rounded synths into something really lush and beautiful. Secure in our happy ending, we get a final little epilogue. Some text comes up on the screen, and as it does, Mechner's most complex music actually begins to play. This is different than the music that's played throughout the rest of the game, and while it contains elements of some of the other motifs, it's really just a lovely composition by Francis Mechner. It's a contrapuntal composition, specifically a two-voice contrapuntal composition, which means that two different voices are moving in counterpoint with one another. You can picture it as kind of two different lines, two different melodies that combine together to create the harmony of the piece. The bottom melody is in the bass clef, and it's just kind of moving around, just nice and steady like this. And the top voice is up higher in the treble clef. It's a little bit jumpier. There are larger spaces in between the intervals that are playing, and between the two voices, they imply this nice chord progression that kind of goes from A major to C sharp to F sharp minor, moves back and forth, changes keys quite a bit. It's got that nice B half diminished chord from the original Karateka motif, and it's just a nice rolling musical coda at the end of our adventure. And those are the musical motifs that play out over the course of Jordan Mechner's Karateka. From his strident heroic anthem to his crushing chromatic villains theme,
Almost done with this, guys.
Mechner admirably combined Wagnerian leitmotif with the limitations of 1980s computer sound hardware to help set the precedent for a
Wagnerian.
generation of video game composers while telling a musical story unlike any that had been told before. I hope you liked this audio explainer and that it gave you a new perspective on the music of Karateka. Thanks for listening and enjoy the game.
It really did. Dating to May 1st, 84. This is the version of Karateka that Jordan submitted to publishers. It's much shorter and simpler than the final game among key differences. It's a prototype. How to win after you've killed the villain. Ideally, you should have discovered by this yourself. You have to kick down the door before you can go through. If you get too close to the princess, she will kill you. To make her like you, must be polite. Bow to her. Letters from Brondeburn. Hey, I know I worked with you before making like a little stupid math game, I think, but can you please look at this game? Close is a copy of Karateka. Level 2 and 3 design documents. Brondeburn signed Karateka on the condition that Jordan comes to its headquarters in San Rafael, California, and work with the team on finishing the game. Oh, sorry about that, guys. Feeling the game was too short, Brondeburn Brass wanted two more levels. These design documents sketch out the beginning of production. Yeah, just one stage. I mean, come on, even if it's a hard game, that's kind of the tree. Jordan had various ways of showing player how far they'd progress. Final attempt on its way is having was tree that slowly scrolled in the background. That's smart. A little parallaxing. Levels 2 and 3, various conceptual scenes from 2 and 3. Note the tree visible through the window level 2, as well as appears in the trap door. Well, that's another long video.
We probably had, in a 3-year period, 7 or 8 games that got in the top 10 on the bestseller charts. Choplifter was certainly one. I think Lode Runner was another. Apple Galaxy and Alien Rain was too.
Alien Rain
was. I suspect there were a few others. I was always worried that there was going to be a dip in the number of really good submissions, and that if we didn't work harder to bring them in, we were going to find it very hard to grow. It was our effort to build an internal group that gave us some stability and also some quantity of submissions. We decided that because we're having so much trouble getting engineers to come up with great ideas, that maybe we should separate the two. The fact that you can code doesn't mean that you can be effective in thinking of what to code. And some of our very best coders would complain to me they never had a creative idea in their lives. Somebody had to tell them what to do. So Gene and Lauren were brought in to do exactly that?
I was an architect. I was moved to Sonoma County as an architect, and I had begun playing some of the games. At one point, I just drew up a number of games that I thought would be fun, and I just drove down to San Rafael and walked in the front door with no introduction and talked to the brothers, talked to Doug and Gary Carlson. Over one lunch, they looked at the drawings and said if I could convince the programmers to do some games for the drawings I had, I was welcome to join. And that was the end of that. I just walked in, and I had to find my own desk and find a computer and do everything else. I just wandered around. In fact, it was a liquor warehouse in San Rafael, and Gene was stuck in an airless room with a door. I don't know what they stored in there. But I just wandered around. There was a desk in there, and I wandered in and asked if it was okay if I sat there. And he said, sure. And we started working together from that day on, but it was pure happenstance.
Gene had worked for Imagineering down at Disney. He said he'd done 5,000 illustrations of Jiminy Cricket and so on.
He worked back in an era when they drew the cells one at a time, right? Hand drawn every animation cell. So he really knew that industry, and he knew Disney spent a lot of time getting the idea of a character, the sense of a character, obviously, in the movies. And that was something that the software industry did not have. It really did not have. So one of the first things that a couple of games we first worked on together, Choplifter, which was a Dan Gorland's game, Gene would always stress that you had to get a sense of the figure, but Gene spent his time talking to everybody about how you could draw that character and just give him enough animation to make sense that he was alive, that he was a real character and would walk across, get impatient and walk across the screen, or get pissed off and leave the screen or whatever. And he started doing that even before Jordan got there, but we worked on a number of things so that's what his sense was. His sense was bringing life, bringing a real character, bringing a real, real stories to the characters. They would throw them in what became known as the rubber room. They would throw them in the room with Gene and myself, and we just BS about the game, add things if we wanted to. It was all at the designers like Jordan's. It was at his, he made all the decisions on it, but we would spent a lot of time on drawing things and talking about animation and everything else. But yes, I generally knew, all internal games and external ones that they eventually published came through the rubber room at some point.
Okay, so let me ask you something. It's because from high school through college, basically I was making these games, and I had the ambition of making a game that would be good enough to get published.
Right.
But that never really happened. It didn't happen with Asteroids, it didn't happen with Death Bounce, and then KARATEKA was the one that finally did. So I sent Broderbund KARATEKA on floppy disk, and they said, this is great, we want to publish it.
It was essentially a finished game. At least they had all the pieces together. I think he wanted to keep the whole thing under wraps and see if he could get it exactly right without any nudging or criticism or whatever. And I have no idea whether he was that self-confident or that unself-confident. I don't know whether he was doing that because he was sure he could do it all on his own, or whether he didn't want to get another refusal.
Yeah, I went to Broderbund in 1984, the summer between my junior and senior years. At that time, I'd mostly finished KARATEKA. I'd sent it to Broderbund on a floppy disk. They'd said they wanted to publish it, but that they wanted me to do some more work on it. And they actually flew me out there for the summer to add a second and a third level.
Right.
Well, we knew it was going to be publishable. There was enough there to know that even if it needed lengthening or a little more of an experience for the player, there wasn't any doubt that it was going to be publishable.
I remember, because we used to have pitch days, I remember seeing it then. I remember when it was brought in, because a lot of times they would bring things in, and I think we would, on Friday afternoons, ideas would come in and everybody take a look at them. And I know Gene was enthralled with just the animation part of it, but Jordan had a real a real interest in movies. I mean, and had taken a lot of inspiration from that. And he and Gene were very similar in that, right? They were both hardcore kind of movie people, and Gene knew all of the movies that Jordan would ever talk about. So I think they shared a real sense of the it was automatic. It was really easy for him, a real sense of the storytelling. But anyway, doing all the filming and then having rotoscoping, having it drawn. And Gene, of course, had spent 20 years doing that, right? Effectively, just doing it by hand. And so he could tell, he could talk about the frames you could skip, how to exaggerate, how to take the rotoscoping, but exaggerate it a bit. Don't do it literally there, all the falls and all the lunges and all that stuff, okay, just tweak that a bit, just because it's an emotional experience rather than just a cinematic one entirely. So those were really easy conversations to have. So those two, I think, had a good time talking about it. I was learning how to draw all that stuff and do the animation with Gene on it, and he was a great teacher on it. I tended to be more precise, and Gene tended to be more exaggerated. He tended to have lots of land and squish kind of things, where balloons would, how they land and flow out. So the leopard was easy, I think, probably because I was more exact about it. I and flow out. So the leopard was easy, I think, probably because I was more exact about it. And the idea that you could actually get one of these things in a game was just wonderful, because I didn't get that much of a chance to do that. I think Gene would probably start with a sketch and I would look at it, and then you just did it pixel by pixel. That's all there was to it. There weren't any fancy big monitors. There wasn't a whole lot of previewing all the frames at different speeds or anything like that. So from a sketch, draw it very carefully by hand, and then repeat the process. It's just a very tedious, slow, pixel at a time process, but fun. I enjoyed every minute of it.
When a programmer submitted game to Broderbund, they would usually work with a publisher and create in-house creative team who help polish up the ideas of professional quality animation and additional features. Cool. Newsletter explained how the inhabitants of the rubber band helping bring game concepts to the final published state. The rubber room. Did I say rubber band? I kept saying rubber band. Why rubber room? Gene Porwood joined Disney as an animator in '50, working as Sleeping Beauty, Peter Pan later. Yeah, so he knew a bunch about rotoscoping. Working on various game projects with KARATEKA. He co-created Where in the World is Carmen Say Go? Damn. Joining Broderbund in '83, Lauren Elliott teamed with Gene to form the company's core creative alliance. Look at that stash. Prototype number 2. Oh, we get to play KARATEKA. High atop a craggy cliff, guarded by an army of fierce warriors, stands the fortress of evil, the warlord Akuma. Deep in the dungeon, Akuma gloats over the princess Mariko. You are trained in the way of KARATEKA. Alone and unarmed, you must defeat Akuma and rescue beautiful Mariko. Put fear and self-concern behind you. Focus your will on the goal. Accept death as your outcome. As an outcome, this is the way of the KARATEKA. Go to your room. Here I go. Oh, music soap. Can't move. Ooh. There we go. All right, left, right. Oh, okay. That's a punch. That's a bow. It's a punch. How do I... And then a kick, yes. How do I... Can I do a high punch? Oh, low punch. Mid punch. High, okay, I gotcha. Go for a low kick. Got him. Normal kick. Got him. Got him again. Backing up, backing up. Got him. I don't know how to block. I don't think there is a block. Maybe it's down. I'll find out, I guess. What? Oh, I was like, why do I have a helmet on? Does that mean no? Push up and then move. Oh. Push up and then start running. Okay. I mean, this is kind of cool to see. Oh. Oh, it got me. Oh my gosh. One hit. It's probably because I was running into his fist. All right. Just keep punching him. Yeah. There, run. That's a weird. You gotta push up and then hold right to like move fast. Oh, something looks like it's glitchy out. Got him. Here comes another one. We got him this time. Feeling good on this one. Whoa, whoa. Stay back. Yeah. Mid kick. Stand back. Low kick. Get your high kick here. Boom. Faked him. High punch. Broke your ankles, boy. Here comes another. High kick. Oh, up is block, it looks like. Okay, maybe that's what it is. I don't know. Bum, bum. Punch, kick. Got him. You got him. All right, maybe that was the last. How do I do that block? I don't know what that is. Going through the portal. Oh! Well, that was unfair. Right at the wow. Wow, 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 wow. Let's see. We just watch level 2. Cool. He's getting like 2 hits at a time. That's how do you do that? Kuma's Castle. Ex-Disney animator drew the exterior shot of Kuma's Castle, first basing on Japan's largest castle, Himeji. Various in-progress takes on the Karateka title screen, opening titles, and other text-based covered opponents' floppy disk. Subtle font changes there. Gene Portwood and Lauren Elliott added a great deal of polish to Karateka's opening sequence, but their biggest idea didn't make it to the final game. Kuma's pet cat, alternately referred to as either a panther or a leopard. Elliott did a great deal of interesting. You know, that would have been cool. Some pretty good sprites. Notepad from Gene Portwood to Jordan with an idea on for how the cat might be implemented in the game. Oh yeah, that's a good animation right there. Prototype 3. Dated September 84, with suggestions from the company's game testing development. Some of these facts are judge's opinions of the testing department. discuss the ending. At least the version of the music of the opening castle plays too fast. Climbing the mountain to the castle. Kuma seems too easy to kill. The explosion occurs in the wrong place. Prototype 3. Let's try it. Ooh, that's a good splash right there. Change at the very end. I've changed here now. Oh, it's fine. I don't know how to block still. Retreat, advance, kick, punch, yeah. Bow, run forward, stop. Oh. Freeze games, control, turn demo. No. There's no block. All right, I got one down. On his shoulder now. Another one. New challenger approaches. Nice. That was good. Getting better. Getting better. Another one approaches. Get away from me. Got him. There's the princess. Level 2. Alrighty. Keep it rolling. Fight more. Alright, bird. Oh, it's coming again. Beat you in the face. Ouch. This guy might take me down. Oh no. Stay back. Stay back. Come on. Come on forward. Come forward, boy. Just walk towards me. Come towards me. Come towards me. Got him. Okay. Not gonna take me down. Do I hear the bird again, maybe? Yep, I hear the bird. Sense. Where's he at? Oh. This is it. There it is. final version of KARATEKA for Apple II. Watch this one.
Of KARATEKA.
I'll listen to the
I am
commentary.
Francis Mechner, Jordan's father, and the composer of the music.
And we'll go away for this.
Yeah, this is the fastest scrolling that I could manage on the Apple II. The Apple II didn't have things like scrolling built in, so we actually had to copy each line of pixels, erase it, and then redraw it one line higher and try to make that look smooth.
I remember the first time reading that, I realized that this game was going to be a success.
I would have loved to make it scroll in 3D like Star Wars, but the music was your idea, to add music to the animations.
Once you told me that beeps existed on the Apple II, I realized that those beeps could be put together into music. Yeah.
And one limitation was that we couldn't have music play while characters were animating because it took all of the processor's power to play a note as well as to animate. So the music could only play in the pauses between action. This title screen was drawn by Gene Portwood, the castle of the moon. You can see how the animation slows down every time the gate moves.
Yeah, I noticed how it got really slow when the game moves.
Really makes all the difference in the realism of the movements of the motion.
Yeah, the cross-cutting between the player and the enemies was, that was kind of a early silent film trick. I was taking film classes in college at the time, and D.W. Griffith, I think, was one of the first to do that suspenseful cross-cutting with kind of an accelerating rhythm.
Who was your model for the kicks?
All of the karate action was done by Dennis,
yeah.
Mom's karate teacher in Chappaqua.
Right.
Filmed him on Super 8 in the high school gym, and just put different heads on the character for the hero.
Is that him running also?
The running is you. You were running.
Oh, this is me running?
Yeah. The running, the climbing up the cliff.
Well, how does it convert from me into Dennis when the fight starts?
Well, I used the references, the film references, and traced the individual frames, and then I sort of drew the head and cleaned it up and stylized it. So, I made it look the same character regardless of whether the film came from you or Dennis.
I see.
Yeah, I didn't think of running or climbing up a cliff or bowing or going from into fighting stance when I did the first film. So I went back and shot a second reel, and you were kind enough to put on Mom's gi and do those moves.
Yeah.
Yeah, swapping out the heads was necessary because there wasn't enough memory in the computer to have two full sets of characters.
Right.
So the hero and the enemies, the movements are exactly the same. It's just shifted one pixel over, which makes orange turn to blue. And then the heads are a separate shape.
Very economical.
had to be. And the animation was so slow that, like, here when the characters move behind the post, that's actually a special effect, because that means that every frame, the post has to be redrawn on top of the character, which, you know, slows down the animation a little bit. And then when the characters move in front of the back post, that means the back post also needs to be redrawn every time. You know, because there's no real concept of parallax or layers. All of that is it's faked. And here you can see the interior. It's, again, most of the screen is black. The only thing that's being redrawn are those window bars that are obscuring Mount Fuji. So just by erasing those and then redrawing the part of Fuji that's revealed, kind of creates the illusion that the whole room is moving, you know, or that the camera is moving down a long corridor.
That's really smart.
But really nothing is being redrawn except for those window bars.
Seems like he's kicking much faster than I was able to kick.
The interface is very simple. I wanted the screen to, like, not have a lot of clutter, like scores and this and that, but the different versions had more stuff. I remember that for a long time I had a bar at the top which showed you how far you were, and you could see the guards coming towards you like little dots on the screen to show you how far you'd gotten in the landscape. And that took a lot of work to program it. I ended up taking it out because it works without it, and in some ways it's better without it because the element of the unknown kind of adds suspense. And you never really know how close you are to the palace or how much more you still have to cover, so there's a little element of surprise.
That was true. I didn't know how far I was gone or anything, but you had the map up there at the beginning of his...
And the suspense, of course, knowing that if you lose a fight, you're going to be sent back all the way to the beginning of the game and have to start over. So the longer you've played, the more of a loss that's going to be. Dad, I think I remember you giving me the advice at one point to make the strength bars triangles. I had a solid strength bar
interesting.
for a long time, you know, like most games at the time. And when you got hit, it would take away a chunk of your strength. And then different guards would do more damage, or some types of punches or kicks would do more or less damage. And your point was that you never know how worried to be because you don't know how much strength a hit is going to take away. Right. So that by making it finite, you can really count them and you know, okay, now I'm just one hit away and now I'm just 2 hits away. It makes it more suspenseful.
Yeah, that's a sort of a behavioral design concept.
Yeah, your behavioral psychology background was very helpful in many ways in this game. This gate is one of those traps that I'm amazed at, in retrospect, that gamers tolerated it. It's so unfair. There's really nothing in the game at this point to tell you that traps exist or that you should be worried about them. You just find out the hard way if you run under that gate.
Whatever architect designed that palace must have had an interesting premonition in designing that gate. Too bad. That's what the architect had in mind.
Oh, that's what the gate does. I didn't get that far.
It's amazing that they had electric eyes in medieval Japan.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah, I remember that when I submitted the first version of the game to Broderbund, it only had that outdoor level. And one of the things that they asked for was to make the game longer. So I added that long corridor and then this downstairs basement level.
See.
That kind of took me the summer of '84. I was very worried about being able to finish it and get back to college in time for senior year in September.
I would love to see like a version of this game where you get the history of like Doom or Duke Nukem or like some really pivotal like games early on and see like the progress of the games and how they made it and struggles and stuff. It'd be really cool because a lot of these games like Diablo and Doom and stuff was made with like a 5-person team.
That made a big difference was to slow down the animations for the enemies by 50%.
Oh.
Because for a long time I used the rotoscope animation for both sets of characters, but because the reaction time is so limiting, by the time you see what the enemy is doing, it's too late to respond in any meaningful way. But by really cutting it in half so that the hero is twice as fast as the enemies, then it feels balanced because you can see the enemy is starting to kick. You can respond, you can press the button or move the joystick.
Yeah.
And
In other words, you take a handicap.
or the enemies.
You ask for a handicap, yeah.
All right, maybe that sounds better with my voice. I just put a noise suppression on there.
I'd forgotten about the shadows. They really help.
Oh, yeah.
The impact stars were your suggestion too, I think.
Oh, yeah, we talked about what shape they should be.
Well, in the beginning, there were no visual stars. It was just, I thought it would be enough that there's a different sound and that you see your hit points go down.
It's a standard comic book device.
Yeah, no, and it's so necessary to the game. But, but until I put it in, I didn't miss it. I think you were the one who pointed out that watching it, you can't tell what's going on. You can't tell who's hitting who.
Right.
To have the star be the correct color and also in the correct place to show you where the blow landed and who got hit makes it clear. Yeah, so many of the things in this game were sort of trial and error. I did it one way thinking that that would be enough, and then only by playing it realized that something more was needed, or something less. The Hawk was a late addition. It was just realizing that the game was becoming monotonous with just one enemy coming after another, spread out over 3 levels. The flying saucer and asteroids was, that structure was kind of an inspiration. That there was a basic thing that you did throughout the game, that inspiration just got steadily harder and harder, and the stakes got higher, and you got better at it. But then there was this element that would come in occasionally at unpredictable moments, so you were always a little bit on edge, thinking, God, I hope the flying saucer.
Fight the bird. Actually fight the bird. That's kind of wild to me. about that? Fight that. Caca. Gotta kill that bird. That compressor off is a little bit better. If I take both suppressors off. No? No, that sounds a little more. Yeah, need less compression on my